My neighbor, the boy I'd secretly loved for 6 years, came back from overseas. And he brought a beautiful girl with him. She told me they lived together abroad. He told me he never read a single one of my letters. So I boarded a plane to Sweden alone, seeking distance, seeking closure. But then, stumbling upon his hidden diary, I found years of entries, scattered fragments detailing 6 years of thoughts about me. One entry struck me to the core. Lily Sue, my love for you surges like a tide. I'm grateful this longing is silent, yet I desperately wish it would roar. It was summer vacation. I slept until the sun was high, then stumbled out of my bedroom, convinced the house was empty. Belting out an off-key pop song, hair sticking up in a disastrous bird's nest, I yanked open my door and collided head-on with a living room full of guests. The second half of my mangled love trade died in my throat. Still frozen, blinking in confusion, I saw Ethan Xia emerge from the kitchen, a glass of water in hand. He surveyed me from head to toe, a familiar, teasing glint in his eyes. Is the rest of the performance pay-per-view only, Lily Sue? This was the first time we'd seen each other since he vanished overseas 6 years ago without a word. I had imagined this reunion countless times. Fantasized about how poised, how elegant I'd be. How calmly I'd greet him with a sophisticated, long time no see. Instead, here I stood, just like the awkward kid I used to be, dazed in the doorway. The man before me felt coolly distant, a stranger almost. It seemed like centuries since I'd last seen him. Yet, the way he leaned casually against the kitchen doorframe, the lazy drawl as he said my name, it was achingly familiar, achingly natural. As if he still lived next door, just dropping by for a meal like always. I retreated hastily back into my room to change and make myself presentable. When I emerged, my dad was clapping Ethan's father on the shoulder. Exchanging hearty, long time no-sees like old brothers. Spotting me, Dad grandly announced he was taking everyone out to celebrate. At the restaurant, amidst the boisterous chatter and clinking glasses of the adults, I stole glances at Ethan beside me. He was taller now, his hair longer, his features sharper, more defined. The muscles in his jaw flexed rhythmically as he ate. What are you looking at? He knew I was watching but didn't meet my eyes, placing a piece of meat in my bowl instead. Is the Peking duck painted on my face? My cheeks flushed crimson. I stammered. Is it very cold in Northern Europe? You seem even paler than before. Like an ice sculpture. A hint of amusement flickered in the ice sculpture's eyes. Not that cold. But you know I can't handle too much sun. I nodded. My mom used to tell me the neighbor boy had sensitive eyes. On bright snowy days or scorching summer afternoons, I knew not to ask him out to play. I chewed the piece of meat Ethan gave me, the conversation stalling at the weather. Truthfully, I knew a lot about Northern Europe's climate. The vibrant blue summer skies, the frequent winter snows. The long days of the midnight sun, the equally long nights of the polar winter. My phone dutifully pushed Gothenburg's daily temperature to me, always accompanied by a background image, a sun for clear days. Misty rain for wet ones. On snowy days, I'd stare at the white expanse on the screen, wondering if Ethan's eyes hurt when he went outside. So many questions bubbled up inside me, about his sudden departure, his life abroad, his reason for returning now. Before I could voice any of them, Ethan's dad called across the table, Lily. You're in university now, right? Yes, uncle, I quickly replied, nearly choking on my food in my haste. Starting my 3rd year soon. What's your major? Taking a sip of my drink, I answered, architecture. Architecture. Excellent. His dad, slightly flushed from the wine, beamed. Ethan studied civil engineering, isn't that related? You design, Ethan builds. You young people should collaborate, learn from each other. The adults around the table chuckled and teased. My face burned as I shot a quick glance at Ethan. He remained impassive, as if they were discussing someone else entirely. But under the table, he subtly tapped my elbow with his phone. His QR code glowed on the screen. Seeing my hesitation, he raised an eyebrow. How about some academic exchange, comrade? Back home, I furiously texted my best friend. If I've sinned, let the law punish me, not force Ethan to see my just woke up, unwashed face. 3 exclamation points instantly popped back. Your neighbor crush is back. Good grief, she was more excited than I was. Before I could even type, yeah, her messages flooded the screen. Why's he back? How long is he staying? Is he leaving again? Me, don't know. Friend. But you saw him? Me, yeah. We even had dinner together. Friend, and you still know nothing. Useless. It wasn't entirely fruitless. At least I got his WeChat contact, right? Hesitantly, I opened Ethan's profile. Few posts, each picture starkly empty. Vast blue skies, bare tree branches, distant seagulls. My phone buzzed again. Friend. So? The application for the exchange program in Sweden is filled out. Are you still submitting it? My hand slipped, accidentally liking one of Ethan's sparse photos. Before I could undo it, a notification popped up. Ethan, congrats. Me? What? Ethan, architecture. It's the major you always wanted, right? I stared at his message, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Typing, deleting, typing again. Was that a guess, phrased as a question? Or a statement, confirming he knew? Those letters I poured my heart into, sent across the ocean. Did he ever receive them? Summer days stretched long. Outside, the cicadas shrieked relentlessly, the sun beating down with fierce intensity. My mind drifted back 6 years, to the summer before my last year of middle school. I'd looked up from a mountain of textbooks, chewing the end of my pen, staring blankly out the window. Knock, knock, knock. Ethan strolled into our apartment, squinting against the sunlight flooding through my bedroom doorway as he passed. He slumped casually into a dining chair, long legs hooked over the rung, announcing to my mom, "Auntie, need some help with my English." Turning from my room, I saw his back. 17 years old, wearing a loose t-shirt that hung on his suddenly lanky frame, revealing the sharp lines of his shoulder blades. Huh, miracles do happen, I'd thought sarcastically. Back then, how could I have known? Some departures, some disappearances, cast long shadows before they happen. Knock, knock, knock. The sound pulled me back to the present. Real knocking this time. I opened the door. A wave of humid summer heat washed in, along with Ethan, now 23. Still in a loose t-shirt, he stood there, holding up a bag. The adults are off partying again. My dad told me to make sure you eat. I stepped aside quickly, letting him in. As he passed, sunlight streamed through my bedroom window, hitting his face. He flinched, turning his head, squinting. For a disorienting moment, time warped. I almost believed we were teenagers again, that after the summer, I'd just need to study harder to get into his high school. Almost believed the world still operated on adolescent rules, where the most painful separation was your desk mate moving to the next row. Almost forgot about Gothenburg, a place 7,000 kilometers away, 7 time zones apart, near the Arctic Circle. The place that had held my youth captive for 6 long years. Ethan sat down naturally at the dining table, folding his long legs under the chair, eyes downcast as he unpacked containers from the bag. What are you spacing out for? Come eat. Joining him, I teased, afraid you poisoned it. Poison's on back order. But I did add medicine, he retorted with a faint smirk, tapping his temple with a long forefinger. Your usual dose. For fixing faulty brains. I'd never won a verbal spar with Ethan. Why did I even try? I sat down, claiming the only chicken leg for myself. Why are the adults always partying? Don't they ever stay home and watch their kids? Been 6 years since I was last back, Ethan said, habitually reaching for the tap water. I intercepted him, swapping it for a glass of boiled water. And I'm leaving again in about a month. Gotta catch up while I can. Leaving again in a month? I frowned. Back to Sweden? Yeah. Ethan nodded. Dad's business there isn't finished yet. This was just a temporary trip back. I nodded, a strange lightness bubbling unexpectedly in my chest. Under the table, I quickly texted my best friend, decided. Submitting the Sweden application. Summer evenings lingered. Taking out the trash as dusk settled, I heard the familiar sound of running water from the apartment upstairs. Our old building had poor ventilation. The bathroom window faced the corridor. Looking up, I saw steam billowing from the slightly ajar window of Ethan's family apartment. A mischievous impulse tickled me. Cupping my hands, I yelled up towards the window, Ethan. What brand of shower gel are you using? Smells amazing. The water stopped abruptly. Then, a young female voice drifted down. Ethan's cooking for me. Before the words fully registered, the apartment door flew open. Ethan stood there, spatula in hand, face thunderous. Lily Sue. Stop messing around. My face instantly flushed hot, surely cycling through shades of red and white. My mouth opened and closed, but the question, who is she, refused to form. Then, a girl with damp, blonde hair and exquisitely delicate features peeked around Ethan's shoulder, wrapped in a bathrobe. She smiled sweetly at him. Who's this? Your little sister. The question wasn't entirely wrong. When we were kids, our parents made us call each other brother and sister. We only stopped in school because classmates teased us and it became annoying. No. Ethan's face remained grim as he started to close the door. His final words squeezed through the narrowing gap, just the neighbor. I stood before the firmly shut door, a sour ache blooming in my chest. Foolish, I thought. So foolish. Still chasing after him like a child, first from downstairs to upstairs, now contemplating chasing him from China to Sweden. It never occurred to me that in those 6 years abroad, he might have found someone else. Someone with more right than me to ask, who is she? After all, I was merely the neighbor. Not a childhood friend, not a sister. Just the neighbor. The exchange program acceptance came through quickly. My professor messaged, urging me to submit the required documents promptly to start the visa process. But suddenly, I found myself actively avoiding Ethan. Declining dinner invitations when I knew he'd be there, ignoring his WeChat messages. Until the night his dad was out of town. My mom called, exasperated, saying Ethan had gone to a class reunion and hadn't returned late into the night. She alternately threatened and cajoled me into going to fetch him. The KTV pulsed with deafening music, strobe lights flashing, making my head spin. Entering the private room, I saw a group of men, faces flushed, sloshing drinks, while several women screeched tunelessly into microphones. Ethan was alone, sprawled on a sofa in a far corner, away from the chaos. His forearm covered his face. He looked asleep. I navigated through the throng and sat beside him. His skin looked incredibly fair under the dim lights, his jawline sharp. Perhaps it was the alcohol, but his cheeks and lips seemed unusually flushed, almost rosy. I poked his leg. Ethan. The corpse didn't move. I sighed. Sleeping like a log. How am I supposed to get you home? The log lowered his arm, eyes still closed. Not asleep. I jumped. Then what are you doing? Ethan frowned, his expression weary. Eyes hurt. I cupped my hand over his eyes, creating a small patch of darkness. Come home with me. He didn't reply, just held out a hand towards me. With another sigh, I stood up, taking his hand to pull him up. But he didn't use my leverage. Instead, he yanked sharply. Off balance, I stumbled, one knee landing awkwardly between his legs, my other hand instinctively bracing on his shoulder. He finally opened his eyes, frowning. Not leaving. What on earth? Ethan continued, but I know your auntie. She definitely told you to drag me home no matter what. You guessed right. His voice, husky from alcohol, softened slightly. So, I'm not leaving. Unless you tell me why you've been ignoring me. Playing the victim now, are we? Shameless. Our current position was uncomfortably close, bordering on intimate. His hand felt hot, his breath warm against my skin. My face flushed again. I haven't been, I mumbled stubbornly. Fine. He abruptly released my hand. Caught off guard, my hand landed squarely on his chest. He let out a soft grunt. Then go home by yourself. Irritated, I stood up and kicked his shin lightly. Who's ignoring you? It's just, we haven't seen each other in 6 years. There's not much to talk about. You remember clearly enough, he countered without flinching. So those 15 years before meant nothing, is that it? Fine, let's reminisce then. Maybe we can even pick up where the last 6 years left off. Who wants to pick up with you? I grabbed my bag, turning to leave. Someone who's leaving again in a month, nothing worth reminiscing about. He sat thinking on the sofa for a moment, then quickly followed me, draping his arm over my shoulder, leaning heavily against me. Drank too much. Can't stand straight. Help me out. You look perfectly steady to me. He leaned closer, his voice laced with amusement. So that's it. Okay then, I'm not leaving. Stop being angry, all right? The upward lilt on his final, all right, tickled my ear. I shrank my neck instinctively. You're lying. Really, he insisted, his expression suddenly serious. I wasn't clear before. My dad is the one leaving in a month. I've already started looking for jobs back here. Ethan was really staying. Walking out of the KTV into the cool night breeze, a wave of melancholy washed over me. Chalmers University of Technology, It had been my dream school. But hearing Ethan say he wasn't leaving, I couldn't help pulling out my phone, looking again at the message from my professor. The deadline for submitting the exchange documents was tomorrow. If I didn't submit them, I forfeited the spot. I looked up at Ethan's face, so close beside me. Licking my lips, I started to ask, that girl at your place last time. Ethan. A blonde woman emerged from a taxi parked down the street, waving. Her makeup was flawless, very European style, her nose enviably high. Over here. Speak of the devil. I felt Ethan stiffen beside me instantly. He straightened up, removing his arm from my shoulder, putting a small but definite distance between us. He frowned towards the woman. Sarah? It's late. What are you doing here? The woman, Sarah, smiled brightly, completely unperturbed. Picking you up. Not necessary, Ethan replied curtly, pressing his fingers to his temples, eyes closed briefly. I didn't drink that much. So the can't stand straight act was just for me? Even if you didn't, I'm still picking you up. It's late, not safe, she insisted cheerfully, dangling her keychain. A small flashlight charm hung from it. The gift you brought me from China before you left. I keep it with me always. Ethan snorted softly. The least safe person around here is you. He had a habit of being sarcastic, sharp-tongued. I couldn't tell if his comment was genuine annoyance or playful banter. Either way, irritation prickled under my skin. I hailed a passing taxi. You two chat. I'm heading home. As I closed the taxi door, a hand with long, distinct knuckles pressed against the frame, stopping it. Ethan pulled the door open again, leaned in, and gestured towards the seat beside me with his chin. Move over. Sarah didn't follow him into the cab. On the way back, Ethan's earlier boisterousness vanished. He leaned against the car door, eyes closed, brow furrowed, silent the entire journey. I ventured cautiously, that woman just now, did you know her back in China? Ethan paused. Sort of. I heard her mention a gift, so you knew beforehand that you were going abroad, right? He confirmed quietly. I tried to keep my voice light, casual. Then, how come you never told me? I didn't even get a chance to say goodbye. A long silence stretched. So long, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, finally, he murmured, his voice flat, I didn't want you to see me off. A chill spread through me, like a hole opening in my chest, letting the cold night wind rush in. I glanced at Ethan again. Just as I was about to speak, he suddenly leaned closer, the passing streetlights flickering in his half-open eyes. His tone left no room for argument. Don't ask anymore. He must have been truly drunk. To maintain balance, he braced his hand on my shoulder. Even through my jacket, I could feel the heat radiating from him. You've asked enough questions. My turn. His voice was low, intense. Lily Sue, do you have any idea how much effort it took for me to come back this time? Worried Ethan might get sick in the taxi, I asked the driver 4 times to please drive slowly. Finally getting him back to his apartment, I opened the door to find the impeccably made-up Sarah lounging on his sofa, legs crossed, waiting. Seeing me supporting Ethan, she raised an eyebrow, recognition dawning. Oh, it's you. Didn't see clearly outside, too dark. Little neighbor. Unsure how to respond, I glanced awkwardly at Ethan. This is. Ethan bent down to take off his shoes, smoothly evading my question. I'm home now. You should go home too. Little neighbor. Sarah murmured thoughtfully, as if remembering something. Ethan, that huge stack of letters that arrived from China way back when, could they have been from her? My head buzzed. I looked up sharply. Noticing my reaction, Sarah smiled faintly, adding an explanation. Ethan and I live together. Don't know. Ethan finally straightened up after changing his shoes, answering her question curtly. Never looked at them. I told you so many times, why throw them away? What if they were from some girl with a crush on you? Sarah teased Ethan, though her tone held an undercurrent of absolute confidence. Ethan scowled, clearly disliking her joke. Rich imagination. Then, as if suddenly remembering my presence in the doorway, he walked over, reaching past me with one hand to grasp the open door handle. His body effectively crowded me backward, out of the apartment and into the hallway. I couldn't help asking in a low voice, Ethan, is she your girlfriend? Lit. Saozi older brother's wife, but used inappropriately here by Lily. Don't call her that, Ethan snapped, his brow furrowing quickly. None of your business. Go to sleep. Slam. The The familiar door shut decisively in my face. I stood in the empty hallway for a long moment. The closed door felt final, impenetrable, just like the past 6 years. It felt like no one had ever lived there, like that door would never open again. Ethan, I thought miserably, why is it, even now that you're back, I feel further away from you than ever? My reactions were always delayed. It wasn't until I was lying in bed, trying to sleep, that the full weight of sadness, the sharp sting of rejection, seeped out from behind my eyes. 6 years. 2,128 days. 314 letters. All that longing unanswered. For 6 years, I'd oscillated between wishing I'd known he was leaving beforehand and hoping his sudden departure meant it was impulsive, unavoidable. Wish the address I'd painstakingly tracked down through 10 different contacts of my parents was correct, yet also prayed those letters never actually reached his home. Now, all those contradictory hopes lay shattered. He bought her a keychain flashlight before leaving, a parting gift, yet told me he didn't want to send off. Bundles of my letters arrived at his home, their home, and he tossed them, unread. Oh, right. Their home. In Gothenburg, he lived with her. His voice, usually lazy and light, had held such weight in the car. Do you have any idea how much effort it took for me to come back? For a fleeting second, I'd foolishly mistaken the intensity for repressed affection. Now, recalling it, it felt like a warning, a rebuke. That heavy door slamming shut echoed in my ears. None of your business. I bit down hard on my pillow, muffling the tears. When did I even start loving Ethan? Was it watching him silently take the blame for my childhood mischief, enduring his father's scolding? Was it seeing him leaning against the wall at the end of the dark alley after school, waiting for me? Was it catching his sparkling eyes across a crowded room full of laughing teenagers? Was it him tossing his workbook onto my desk when I was struggling, filled not just with answers, but multiple, meticulously explained solution methods, something he normally hated doing? Or was it that summer before he left, staring out at the screaming cicadas and the mountain of exam papers, finding myself compulsively writing his name, Sia, over and over on scratch paper, then hastily trying to cover it up by adding pages of spring, autumn, winter? I traced his name, Ethan Sia, on the wall with my finger, then drew a large X through it. A surge of anger rose. Why did other people's youthful crushes fade into unremarkable middle age, while my Ethan only grew more dazzling, more unattainable? It wasn't fair. Maybe he should go bald, get fat, become greasy. The thought was immediately followed by panic. God, I didn't mean that. Retract. Undo. My head throbbed from crying. Sleep felt impossible. I got up, opened my laptop, and just before the deadline, submitted all the required documents for the exchange program. The visa came through quickly. I made my parents swear to keep my departure a secret. Right up until the day before I left, Ethan, encountering me in the hallway, just asked casually if I'd eaten yet. Settled in my airplane seat, dusk painted the sky outside in fiery streaks. Before switching off my phone, I snapped a picture of the vast, burning sunset reflected in the terminal windows. Then, for over 10 hours, we flew westward, chasing the setting sun across continents, from the eastern hemisphere to the western. But the sun inevitably outran us. Night fell. Landing in Gothenburg, it was raining. September felt colder here than I'd imagined. I automatically pulled a jacket from my bag, layering it over my t-shirt. The girl who'd sat next to me gave a thumbs up. Wow, came prepared. Though it was my first time physically here, Gothenburg felt strangely familiar. I knew its seasons, could name its famous landmarks, recite facts gleaned from countless online searches. Yet, it felt emptier than Ethan's photo suggested. The sky bluer, the seagulls more distant. Everything I saw seemed incomplete, missing someone. It was ironic. I applied to this university to be closer to Ethan. Now I'd come to the city precisely to get away from him. The dorms were rows of simple, cream-colored houses, sparsely furnished but clean, each with a small kitchen and living area. I couldn't stomach the cafeteria food, nor the cold tap water everyone else seemed to drink without issue. After a rough period of adjustment sickness, I discovered an Asian supermarket near campus. Now, most sunny weekends involved a solitary pilgrimage, loading up with a week's worth of familiar groceries, then hauling the heavy bags back to my dorm alone. The supermarket owner was a friendly woman from Northeast China. During quiet periods, she loved to chat About her husband back home, her employees, the endless stream of Chinese students passing through. Since arriving, I'd become withdrawn, rarely interacting much. But I always listened patiently to her stories, responded thoughtfully. This small, 20-square-meter shop felt like the only piece of home, the only anchor to my former life in this vast, foreign city. Late autumn brought sharp temperature drops. I succumbed, inevitably falling ill. Aching all over, head spinning, I huddled under a blanket layered over my sweater, still shivering. But my rice supply was dangerously low. Wrapping a scarf tightly around my neck, I forced myself out to the Asian supermarket. After filling my backpack with vegetables and sauces, I paid, readjusted my scarf, and bent to hoist the 20-pound bag of rice. Hey, you came alone, the owner exclaimed. Why didn't you bring a male classmate to help? My voice muffled by the scarf, I mumbled, I can manage. You stubborn girl. She snatched the heavy bag from me, then pressed the back of her hand against my forehead. You're burning up. What? Are you trying to prove? Wait a bit, one of the staff is finishing his shift soon. I'll have him drive you back with the delivery. No, really, I protested weakly. Don't trouble yourselves. She pushed me firmly down onto a stool. What trouble? You know, you remind me so much of that young man who used to work here. She'd mentioned him several times before, this former employee I supposedly resembled. I sniffled. Why do you keep saying I'm like a boy? Do I look that rough? Not your looks, silly girl. She chuckled. It's your vibe, your aura, you know? I shook my head. What aura? That boy, when he first came looking for work, she launched into the story, looked so pale and thin, didn't seem like he could handle tough labor. But she leaned closer conspiratorially. He worked incredibly hard. Moving stock, arranging shelves, never complained. Did everything himself, gritting his teeth. I told him many times, rest if you're tired. You're not the only one working here. But he never listened. Stubborn, just like you. She paused, thinking. Then one time, he collapsed while unloading boxes outside. That's when I found out. He has problems with his eyes. Bright light makes it hard for him to see. My hands clenched abruptly at her words. I nearly knocked a bottle of oyster sauce off the shelf. Problems with his eyes? Yeah, the owner confirmed. He didn't talk much, so I don't know the whole story. But apparently, his sister did something to damage them when they were kids. A small sigh of relief escaped me. Not Ethan. I'd known him since childhood. He definitely didn't have a sister. Besides, Ethan working at an Asian supermarket? Impossible. His family was wealthy, their business booming, expanding even to Northern Europe. That's why his dad brought him here. Ethan always carried himself with an air of quiet privilege. Even in a standard school uniform, he stood out. And lazy? He practically invented lounging. Him, doing manual labor? Even if she showed me surveillance footage, I'd probably dismiss it as fake news. My interest in chatting waned. While the owner helped another customer, I scribbled my dorm address on a piece of paper, left it with more than enough cash for the delivery on the counter, and slipped out. My head swam, legs felt like lead. The autumn wind cut like a knife, finding its way inside my collar. Just a few hundred meters from my dorm, the sky opened up without warning, heavy raindrops splattering down. Northern European weather. Completely unpredictable. I sighed, pulled my hood up, and started running. After only a few steps, the world tilted, darkness closing in. My legs buckled, and I collapsed onto the rain-slicked pavement. Waking, I felt a familiar presence, a sense of warmth surrounding me. Drifting in and out of consciousness, I realized I was being carried, draped over someone's back. The person beneath me was lean, their shoulder blades digging slightly into my ribs. I lifted my head groggily, focusing on the back of their head. It looked familiar. Ethan? The footsteps faltered for a second, but he didn't respond. Impossible. He should be 7,000 kilometers away, in China, with his beautiful blonde girlfriend. I struggled weakly. Put me down. I don't need your help. The arms supporting me tightened their grip. Not letting go. That voice, a lump formed in my throat, tears stinging my eyes. Ethan always knew how to push my buttons. Anger surged through the weakness. I leaned forward and bit down hard on his shoulder. Ow. He flinched but didn't loosen his hold, his voice exasperated. Don't waste your energy. I'm definitely not letting go this time. Sickness breeds vulnerability. Defeated, overwhelmed, I started crying, tears soaking into the back of his shirt. Ethan, are you crazy? I was finally starting to forget you. Why are you doing this? Why are you tormenting me again? He sighed, his voice still quiet, concise. Don't forget. He definitely had issues. I woke up on the sofa in my dorm room. Evening light filtered through the window. The heavy rain continued outside. The living room was dark, unlit. I was cocooned in blankets, bundled up like a bear. The room was silent. If not for the dampness still clinging to the ends of my hair, I might have believed the rescue was just a fever dream. My eyes adjusted to the dimness. A solitary figure stood near the window, silhouetted against the fading daylight, face obscured by shadows. Seeing me stir, the figure's throat moved, a rough, husky voice asking, "Feeling better?" I didn't answer. He walked closer then. His rain-soaked hair was still damp, likely finger-combed haphazardly, sticking up in odd tufts. Ethan held out a steaming mug. "Drink this." I remained stubbornly still on the sofa, pretending to be deaf. He held the mug patiently for a long moment, then sighed, looking resigned. "Lily Sue, this habit of yours, running away without a word whenever things get tough, are you punishing me or yourself?" His words almost provoked a snort of derision, but my nose was too stuffy. A silent snort lacked impact. I maintained my silence. Strange. For the past 6 years, 2,128 days, 314 letters. Even with no response, I'd felt an endless need to pour out my thoughts to him. Now, looking at the man I'd yearned for, dreamt of, my heart felt heavy, weary, like the sinking sun outside. I had nothing left to say. Rebuffed, Ethan finally placed the mug on the coffee table, running a frustrated hand through his already messy hair. "Lily, are you angry?" He crouched beside the sofa, folding one long leg beneath him, adjusting the blanket around me. His voice was softer now, gentler than I'd ever heard it. "Can I know why?" Finally, I spoke, my voice flat. "Because I don't want to see you." Ethan's gaze flickered. His lips parted, closed, parted again, as if searching for words, for an explanation. In the end, he simply slumped. His shoulders slightly, looking utterly defeated. "Okay, don't be angry." He offered his shoulder again. "Bite me again if it helps." That upward lilt on the was still infuriatingly charming. But this time, it only deepened the ache in my chest. A knock echoed at the door. A tall, handsome Swedish guy stood there, blonde hair, blue eyes. Anderson, the supermarket employee. He held my backpack in one hand, the heavy bag of rice in the other. As I started to get up, Ethan pressed me back down onto the sofa and answered the door himself. After placing the groceries inside, Anderson came over to the sofa, smiling. "I saw the note you left," he said in accented English. "So I brought you this." He pulled a can of peaches from his pocket. During one of my chats with the owner, I'd mentioned how my parents always gave me canned peaches when I was sick as a child, a silly superstition that they helped me recover faster. The owner must have seen the extra money I left and told Anderson to bring me some. Looking up to thank him, I saw Ethan standing in the shadows across the room, his expression unreadable, radiating an energy like a bristling hedgehog. I realized. Then, Ethan was one of the few people who knew about my canned peach habit. Anderson's innocent gesture must have triggered some misunderstanding in his mind. A mischievous impulse, fueled perhaps by lingering hurt, made me beam up at Anderson, my voice deliberately warm. "Be careful on your way back. When I'm feeling better in a few days, I'll come visit you at the store." Anderson grinned, revealing white teeth. "Anytime. Take care of yourself." Ethan watched Anderson leave, his face an icy mask. After a long silence, his voice came out strained, rough. "Lily, you don't want me either anymore, do you?" That word, either, nearly made me laugh bitterly. So, his precious Sarah didn't want him anymore, and now he was turning back to me? Did he really think I'd just be waiting? That I'd happily accept someone else's cast-offs? "Yes," I replied coldly. "Stay away from me." Ethan didn't argue. His eyelids drooped slightly. He nodded once, turned, and walked towards the door. The sky outside was darkening rapidly. Maybe my fevered eyes were playing tricks, but for a fleeting second, I thought I saw a glint of moisture in his. Before leaving, he paused at the door, tilting his head slightly towards the coffee table. "Remember to drink the medicine." Then, without waiting for a response, he stepped out into the wind and rain. After days of relentless gloom, my illness finally passed along with the rain. A small stack of letters waited in my dorm mailbox, all addressed in Ethan's familiar script. He thought sending a few letters now could erase the past 6 years, could reset everything. My hurt wasn't just about the silence, the unanswered pleas. After Ethan left China, my family's business hit hard times. Money became terrifyingly tight. School fees were a constant worry. My parents gently suggested I switch my aspirations from architecture to education, become an English teacher like my mother. Tuition would be free. Our home life became shrouded in the thick smoke of my father's worried chain-smoking, punctuated by my parents' heavy sighs. They knew my dream. I knew their burden. I started skipping breakfast to save enough money for the 6 yuan international postage each weekend. My letters to Ethan carefully omitted our financial struggles, focusing instead on academic pressures. Huddled under my blankets, tears soaking my pillow, I'd whisper my fears onto the page. What should I do, Ethan? Should I give up? How desperately I yearned for a reply back then. Even a simple, keep going, would have felt like a lifeline, a beam of light piercing the darkness. But there was nothing. Silence. If my perpetually broke uncle hadn't suddenly appeared with tens of thousands of yuan, pulling our family back from the brink, how could I have afforded university, let alone my chosen major? How could I have earned the scholarships that eventually brought me here to Sweden? And yet, when Sarah asked about those letters, Ethan dismissed them with a careless, never looked at them. Staring at the thin stack of envelopes from him now, I felt no desire to even open them. I shoved them into the bottom drawer of my desk, burying them under textbooks. Northern European winters are long and unforgivingly cold. The polar night stretches, daylight shrinking to a few meager hours. Eating lunch late often meant watching darkness swallow the sky outside the dining hall window. Class ended well after true nightfall. The path from the lecture hall back to my dorm cut through a dense grove of trees, unlit. My phone flashlight cast a weak, narrow beam on the snowy path, barely enough to see my footing. Crunch, crunch went my boots on the packed snow. Then, another sound. Crunch, from somewhere behind me. An echo? I spun around, shining the light back. The crunching stopped. Nothing but dark trees, silent sentinels in the gloom. Unease prickled. I quickened my pace. The crunching behind me resumed, faster now, definitely not matching my rhythm. Panic flared. I broke into a run. The sounds behind me intensified, growing closer, heavier. My heart hammered against my ribs, echoing the frantic pounding in my ears. Glancing back while still running forward, I slammed into something solid. Before I could react, a warm, strong hand clamped around my wrist. I screamed, instinctively swinging my flashlight beam towards the figure. The harsh white light illuminated a startlingly handsome face. The figure was tall, eyes squeezed shut against the glare, brow deeply furrowed. But he didn't turn away, just stood there, letting the light blind him. Lily, it's me. Even distorted by the situation, the voice was unmistakable. Relief washed over me, so potent it felt like warmth spreading through my frozen limbs. Ethan? My voice cracked, thick with unshed tears. He reached out as if to steady me, his hand hovering in the air for a moment before retracting. Yeah, don't worry, I'm here. My fear subsided considerably. I fell into step beside him, walking towards the edge of the woods. The flashlight reflecting off the snow was still harsh. Ethan squinted, hands shoved deep in his pockets, walking carefully. Once we reached the relative safety of the streetlights, I finally felt secure enough to look back. A dark silhouette stood at the edge of the trees, peering out, clearly frustrated. I shuddered, instinctively grabbing Ethan's arm. He stiffened for a second, hesitated, then started to pull his arm away. Awkwardly, I began to withdraw my hand, but he suddenly caught it, firmly grasping my fingers and tucking my hand into his coat pocket alongside his own. Me? ? Ethan, face impassive, it's freezing. Me? Then why are your palms sweating? Ethan, expression cracking for a split second. I'm a warm person. I didn't pull my hand away this time. Let it rest there, nestled against his. Though we'd grown up together with casual physical contact, this felt different. My face grew warm again despite the cold. Back at my dorm, snow began falling again, flakes swirling thicker and faster. Ethan stood on my doorstep, nose and cheeks flushed pink from the cold, making his fair skin seem even paler, his slightly downcast eyes sparkle. A wave of sympathy softened me. I opened the door wider, stepping aside. "Come in for some hot coffee." He remained rooted to the spot, snowflakes dusting his hair and shoulders. He looked at me intently, seriously, for a long moment, making me squirm, before finally lowering his gaze as if his eyes were tired. "No, I should go." He turned halfway, then paused. "Next time, walk with someone. Or call me." My phone vibrated in my pocket. I instinctively glanced down. When I looked up again, Ethan was already walking away, disappearing into the swirling snow. The message was from my uncle. "Finished class." He was incorrigibly nocturnal, his late-night energy perfectly aligning with my time zone difference. Before I could even type a reply, a video call request popped up. Accepting, I juggled, taking off my backpack. His face filled the screen, flushed red. "Drinking again. Just got back to the dorm?" Uncle waggled his eyebrows suggestively. "Little boyfriend walk you home?" My hand fumbled, nearly dropping the jacket I was shrugging off. "What? Playing dumb with me?" He jutted his chin out. "That scarf around your neck, obviously not yours." I realized then, Ethan had wrapped his scarf around my head earlier against the cold. In the confusion, I'd forgotten to return it. Seeing my silence, my uncle crowed triumphantly. "Knew it. Who is it?" "Gotta be that Xia kid, right? Install a camera, why don't you?" I knew it, Uncle slurred happily, taking another swig of whatever he was drinking. "That kid followed you all the way to Sweden. Knew you two would work things out eventually." "Don't talk nonsense," I frowned. "His coming here has nothing to do with me." Yeah, little girl shy." His tone was pure mockery. Okay, nothing to do with you. Chasing you to the airport has nothing to do with you. That tens of thousands he gave me also has nothing to do with you, right?" My hand froze. I leaned closer to the screen. "Chase me to the airport? Tens of thousands? What are you talking about?" Uncle's drunken haze seemed to clear instantly. His eyes widened in panic. "Tens of thousands? Did I say that? Must be hearing things." I narrowed my eyes. "Don't pretend." He coughed awkwardly, resorting to bluster. "Whoops, phone's only got 98% battery left. Gotta go, bye." The screen went black. I held the phone, motionless, thoughts racing. Ethan went to great lengths to come back to China. But then he showed up in Sweden barely a month after I arrived, chasing me to the airport, giving my uncle money? That didn't sound like the coolly detached Ethan I knew. Or thought I knew. Fingers trembling slightly, I opened my photo gallery, found the picture I took just before takeoff. The sunset blazing across the sky, reflecting fiery orange on the vast terminal windows. I zoomed in. There, caught in the reflection, barely visible but unmistakable, a figure, running, posture tense, shoulders squared. Tall, lean, familiar. Ethan. More letters from Ethan appeared in my mailbox. This time, I couldn't resist. I opened them. Inside one was a slightly crumpled piece of paper, seemingly random thoughts. His studies were going well. The tree he'd mentioned once had bloomed. If I ever came to Sweden, he'd take me to the coast. Confused. I glanced at the date scrawled at the bottom. 3 years ago. Tucked inside the folded paper was a smaller envelope, worn at the edges, bearing a Chinese postmark. My own letter, sent to him 3 years prior. I opened the rest. They were all the same. A larger envelope containing one of my old, unanswered letters, accompanied by a new sheet from him, filled with mundane details of his life in Sweden, each anecdote, each observation, a quiet, belated response to something I had written years ago. The letters weren't chronological, the contents varied, but the overall tone was one of forced lightness, strange cheerfulness. Reading between the lines, I sensed this ease wasn't his reality, but rather fleeting moments of respite snatched from long periods of exhaustion and hardship. Night had fallen over the city. The streets outside were hushed, few people venturing out into the heavy snowfall. I pulled up the map app on my phone. After a moment's hesitation, I grabbed my hat and bus pass and headed out. 3 bus transfers later, I stood before a row of quaint houses, red brick walls topped with blue-tiled roofs. The street sign bore a tongue-twisting Swedish name, one I recognized instantly. Thanks to 6 years of obsessive practice, I could probably write it from memory with my eyes closed. Following the house numbers, I finally stopped before one in particular. It was late December, yet instead of the ubiquitous Christmas wreaths adorning neighboring doors, this house had traditional Chinese paper cuts pasted onto the window panes. The contrast was stark. Walking through the small gate, I rang the doorbell. Waiting, my mind raced. Should I be direct? Why didn't you mail the replies you wrote 6 years ago? Or more subtle? Tell me about your life these past 6 years. Or confrontational? I know about the money you gave my uncle. Watch his reaction. The wind chime above the door tinkled softly. I looked up from my frantic internal debate. The door opened. Standing there, the question I'd rehearsed dissolved, replaced by a mumbled, "Does Ethan Xia live here?" Sarah leaned against the doorframe, raising a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. Little neighbor? They were still living together? My throat felt dry. I held up the scarf still around my neck. I came to return his scarf. Returning a scarf in this weather? Sarah looked thoroughly unconvinced, but stepped aside slightly. He's not home. You can just leave it in his room. Humiliation washed over me. I felt rooted to the spot, close to tears. No, it's okay. Giving it to you is the same, right? I should go. Sorry to bother you. Sarah didn't take the scarf, her eyebrows still arched skeptically. She studied me for a moment, then said, "I wouldn't dare touch his things. Especially anything related to you. Go put it in his room yourself. There, that one." She gestured vaguely down the hall. Confused, I hesitated, wanting to ask more, but Sarah had already turned and headed upstairs, leaving me awkwardly stranded in the entryway. Finally, steeling myself, I walked towards Ethan's room. It was Spartan, clean to the point of feeling cold, sterile almost. A single suitcase lay open on the floor. The closet door was ajar, revealing mostly empty hangers. Was he moving out? Thanks to his packing efforts, his few possessions were readily visible, including, tucked at the bottom of the suitcase, a thick bundle of letters and a soft-cover notebook. Kneeling beside the suitcase, heart pounding guiltily, I glanced back to ensure the hallway was empty, then closed the bedroom door softly. After a fierce internal struggle, I reached for the notebook. Ethan had a half-sister, Sarah, born from his father's relationship with a Swedish woman before he married Ethan's mother. Back in our small hometown, gossip spread like wildfire. Old-timers, sipping tea, spun lurid tales. Ethan was motherless. His father was never around. His sister Sarah had damaged his eyes, left him half-blind. Ethan rarely spoke, meeting the whispers with a lowered gaze, an air of indifference. But he was just a child. Of course, it hurt. When the whispers became too much, he'd retreat to the cool metal steps of the apartment building entryway, back pressed against the cold iron door. Until Lily Sue from next door found him, coaxed him inside, shared her snacks. Lily's mother, a teacher, was strict, uninterested in gossip. So Lily remained blissfully unaware of Ethan's tangled family history. She didn't know his father planned to take him to Sweden, didn't know Ethan secretly saved every penny, dreaming of staying, going to university with her, didn't know that in the end, he quietly gave all his savings to her uncle before boarding the plane with his father, vanishing without a goodbye. Life in Sweden wasn't the paradise his father promised. Business ventures failed as often as they succeeded. His father, initially just working long hours, eventually stopped coming home much at all. Money grew tight again. Ethan and Sarah's relationship remained strained, but proximity forced a truce. Living under the same roof for years, they fell into routines, cooking extra portions for each other, adding items to shared grocery lists. A fragile equilibrium. Ethan, sharp-tongued by habit, still sniped at Sarah, but the old resentment had faded. He didn't truly hate her. That flashlight keychain he bought before leaving China? He'd tossed it to her dismissively, saying it was a reminder of her childhood crimes against him. But secretly he thought the darkness in Northern Europe needed some light. As for himself, he'd already found his light. It arrived weekly, tucked inside the small mailbox at the end of the yard. Collecting the mail became Ethan's secret ritual, his vulnerable point. Sarah caught him a few times, teased him about secret admirers. Ethan would just scowl, toss the letters unopened into the bin. He couldn't explain his fear of Sarah connecting Lily to him, fear of anyone seeing the depth of his hidden feelings. He built walls, dense and impenetrable, trying desperately to keep Lily safely outside them. Retrieving the letters from the trash later, when Sarah wasn't looking, was always a humiliatingly furtive act. Ethan wasn't yet 18 when he started working at the Asian supermarket. Illegal, underpaid. But he never complained, worked tirelessly. He told the owner he was saving for a plane ticket home. When Lily wrote about academic pressure, Ethan was hauling 20-pound rice sacks on his aching shoulders. When she lamented the gap between dreams and reality, he was rubbing his blurred eyes, struggling through late-night studies after a long shift. When she complained about university life not meeting expectations, he was trapped under fallen boxes in the back of a delivery truck. When she pleaded for a reply, he was lying face down in the snow, eyes throbbing from the glare, unable to stand for long minutes, knowing he'd have to pay for the goods damaged in his fall. How could he possibly write back? He was afraid the ink would smudge with his tears. Afraid she'd see the dried tear tracks on the cheap paper and laugh at him. More afraid, still, that she would pity him. From 17 to 23, he finally earned his degree. Finally saved enough for the ticket home. He flew back, arrived at her doorstep without even stopping to adjust to the time difference. Heard her singing off-key through the bedroom door, then saw her emerge, hair wild, endearingly messy. Sunlight streamed through her window, hitting his face. Lily stood frozen, embarrassed. Ethan just wanted to smile. It's good, he thought. So good to be back. The soft click of the lock brought me back to the present. Ethan stood in the doorway, snowflakes melting in his hair. He stared at me, kneeling beside his open suitcase, the notebook in my hands, for a long moment. Then he came closer, crouching down, his icy fingertips brushing my cheek. Why are you crying? Ignoring his question, I asked numbly, are you moving out? Yeah, Ethan nodded. That area where you live. It's not very safe at night. Thought I'd find a place closer to you. His voice was soft, reminding me suddenly of the day he'd curled up on my sofa, asking tentatively if I could stop being angry. He was afraid of my anger, afraid I'd push him away again. He hadn't dared approach me until I collapsed into his arms, biting his shoulder in the rain. Only then did he whisper, not letting go this time. And yet, I'd deliberately used Anderson to provoke him. Seen him retreat into the shadows of my room, heard the raw pain in his voice when he asked if I didn't want him anymore. All those childhood whispers, all those fears of abandonment. He hated being unwanted. Ethan, always so cool, sarcastic, detached, a defense mechanism against being hurt, against being left behind. Only with me was he unguarded, soft, boyish. And I had answered him, yes. Stay away from me. That distance stretched through autumn, into deep winter. If not for the incident in the woods tonight, who knows when we would have spoken again? How much pain must he have been carrying? This night, Ethan looked like he'd been wandering in the snow for hours. His coat was soaked through. As I brushed melting snowflakes from his hair, I noticed how cute his ears looked, flushed pink from the cold. Touching his cheek, however, I realized it was burning hot. I frowned. What's wrong? Ethan looked up slightly, answering with a lazy grunt. The next second, his body went limp, slumping forward, his chin resting heavily on my shoulder. He was burning with fever. Somehow, I managed to get him onto the bed. Just as I stood up to get water, his hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. Eyes squeezed shut, body curled tightly. He murmured, "Lily, don't go." I leaned closer, gently stroking his hair. "I'm just getting you some hot water." He shook his head fretfully, clinging tighter. "Don't leave again, Lily. I'm afraid I won't be able to catch you this time." My eyes stung. Bending closer, I whispered soothingly, "I won't. I'll be right back." He blindly reached out, pulling me down into an embrace, holding me fiercely. His voice was thick, muffled against my shoulder. "Lily Sue, I missed you so much." School was closed for the Christmas holidays. I stayed at Ethan's place, looking after him for several days. His house had plenty of rooms, and Sarah, living upstairs, kept mostly to herself. We rarely crossed paths. Ethan, milking his illness for all it was worth, became increasingly demanding, perhaps partly to avoid discussing the past 6 years. The privileged young master insisted only my homemade congee would do. Store-bought was unacceptable. Medicine had to be delivered bedside. Walking 2 steps apparently triggered debilitating dizziness. Watching him lounge against the headboard, long legs stretched out, it was impossible to reconcile this image with the hardworking youth described by the supermarket owner. I didn't dare mention it, though. Whenever I started to probe, he'd just fix me with those smiling eyes, his voice, raspy from sickness, taking on a pleading, almost coquettish tone. Faced with that handsome face, my resolve melted. Whatever he asked, I found myself agreeing. Utterly susceptible to a pretty face. After several days of pampering the young master, his fever finally broke. It was time for me to return to my dorm. Early the next morning, I went to his room to check on him, but he wasn't there. Panic flared briefly. I instinctively pulled open his closet door. His suitcase was neatly packed, zipped shut. As the door swung open, a piece of paper fluttered out from somewhere. I picked it up. A sheet of scratch paper, covered in densely packed characters, Xia, 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 over and over. Suddenly, I remembered that stifling summer before he left. Me at my desk, surrounded by papers, compulsively writing his name, then trying to hide it by filling the rest of the page with spring, autumn, winter. Ethan, finished with his tutoring session with my mom, had peered over my shoulder. Obsessed with The Legend of Jinhuan much, he teased. Flustered, I'd tried to crumple the paper. He'd snatched it away playfully. Confiscated. Study hard. I thought that piece of childish calligraphy was long gone. Yet here it was, 7 years later, in Gothenburg. I turned the paper over. On the back, written in small, slightly faded characters. Lily Sue, my love for you surges like a tide. I'm grateful this longing is silent, yet I desperately wish it would roar. The wind chime above the front door jingled. Ethan's tall frame appeared in the doorway. He froze, seeing me standing there, holding the paper. My voice felt thick. Where did you go? You're not fully recovered yet, don't you know better? My scolding trailed off as I noticed the bouquet in his hands. Flowers I couldn't name, but recognized as the wildflowers that grew only along the rugged Gothenburg coast. Ethan smiled, that familiar, heart-stopping smile. Couldn't wait to take you to the sea. So I brought the sea to you. Outside, fireworks suddenly erupted, streaking color across the sky. I realized then, it was January 1st. New Year's Day. The snow had stopped. After days of gloom, the sun finally broke through, flooding the room with clear, bright light. He stood bathed in the warm glow, walking towards me, step by deliberate step. Reaching my side, he squinted slightly against the light streaming through the window behind me. Lily Sue, he murmured, his voice soft, you're a little dazzling. Northern Europe has no humid summers, no shrieking cicadas. But it can reunite those who have been lost to each other. He was here. And suddenly, it was spring.